3, 2, 1.
Boom, and welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by Pacific Game Calls. I am Jeff Stanfield with the world-famous Andy Shaver.
That's not all you're with today, Jeff.
Nope, we got the world-famous Prince of Poachers, Mr. Charles Beaty, with us today. How you doing, Charles?
Fine.
Good to have you again. It's been over a year. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Been a long year?
Yeah. I had to defend my title as the toughest man on the planet about 14 more times with the cancer treatments, but, you know, it's about to come to an end soon.
Cancer's a mean bitch.
Yeah, all the challengers, wimped out on me and died, but as you can see, I'm still here.
Now, what cancer do you have?
Squamous cell carcinoma.
That's right.
I'm still dealing with it in my solar plex, but it's about to have to be cut out.
What are they thinking that's going to entail?
They're going to have to field dress me like they did my scrotum before. I just hope the surgeon don't drop the knife again and cut my nut in half and gash my penis again.
They're going to have to go. It'll be in your stomach,
yeah,
though.
I think I'm going to wear a steel chastity belt, though, just in case.
Yeah, I think so. Golly, that's just... You never think about it, but all the deer that you field dressed, and that's basically the scene that's going to be on that operating table.
Yeah, they're going to have to lay me open about 6 inches both sides of my navel, straight up the middle like open heart surgery, and they're going to have to lay that back both ways and take out the roots and the remaining carcinoma there. I didn't know it, but I had a tote sack full of raw oysters on the half shell still there. We've pulled them all mostly out. Now I got one about like a boot sole, like the leather in a boot sole, remains. But under it, I know what grows there. I've seen it in smaller places. But roots like an oak tree underneath that last carcinoma is what I think they'll find. They may need to get their 10 snips and sawzall out to get it out of there. It's dead. The virus army's dead. The debris, the left behind, fallout's got to come out.
Mm-hmm. So you got your second book. You're still working on it. I know you've been sick. Kind of pushed that back a little bit.
Yeah.
So you texted me the other day that you've gotten an inn now on the old ranch you used to be on.
Yeah, the Riskin Ranch. I've reunited with the current heir. Yeah.
And they've invited you to come down and go hunting again?
Oh yeah, he wants me to come see what all they've done with the ranch. I mean, they sell hunts out of it. They've got it upgraded. I don't know what all they've done. Probably food plots, wheat fields.
How many acres is it?
Well, now the Anthony's down to, I believe he's got 240 left of the original 620. I think that's what he's got.
You got 240 acres in the middle of all that Kenedy stuff.
In the middle of the Kenedy Ranch.
Woo! I bet the Kennedys want that.
Well, back in the Tom East days, Tom East offered the two original owners, the two sons from Grandpa Riskin, they got half each. Tom offered them both $1 million each to walk away, and they wouldn't sell it to him.
It was worth a whole lot more than that now.
Oh, yeah, but back then that was a lot of money. But one of the fathers in it sold 80 acres on the northwest corner, and they disowned him for selling it. No one was supposed to sell any of that property. It was a family agreement. So Bill, Anthony's grandpa, got kicked out of the family over it. But, Anthony Riskin is now the heir to that 240 on the northeast corner,
Is that close to the big oak patch that you talk about?
That's due south of that throat and that clearing where I, finished the last podcast with the 30-inch buck and those others all bunched up in the swell, were together. That throat, that clearing's about 2 miles north of the Riskin.
I have people that all the time ask me about you and the stuff that you've done, and I think everyone's the same, is that no one condones poaching at all, but as we get farther in this, the stuff you did and the time you spent on those ranches is the story. Did you build campfires at night?
Very few. Only if weather permitted. Cold, rainy, icy, drizzly weather. I've had to build fires to survive, but I didn't build a fire that I felt like was going to be seen on clear weather. Never.
So if it was just a cold night,
clear
night, you're probably not building a fire.
No way. If I heard air pressure, I would never build a fire.
You just grit your teeth and bear it.
That's it. Get in that sleeping bag and shiver.
And you stayed in there for 20-something days one time, right?
27 days.
27 days.
In the Kenedy.
How much food did you take with you?
Well, I took enough to get me by the first 3 or 4 days, and then I ate like a king the rest.
All venison?
Turkey. I call that catfish fillet. I shoot a turkey, just take them tenders out of the heart of the breast and fry them up, be like eating catfish fillets.
So you ate what you basically after that you just shot what you ate.
Yeah, the best thing I've ever had in there was hog nuts and javelina liver.
Oh.
That was some good eating.
Don't sound
I
very
don't
good.
know about that. Hog nuts?
Oh yeah,
Well, you batter them, fry them?
exactly.
Yeah?
Oh, you don't get no better than that.
What about the liver?
I've
the
never heard
javelina
anybody
liver?
eating hog nuts ever out here.
Or
Ever.
the javelina liver. I've
No.
never heard of that either.
The most delicious liver on the planet.
Really?
Maybe warthog's better. I'm gonna try that.
But so you would eat. That's what you're.
I ate what I killed.
And it was basically going to be a big game deal.
Strictly after the trophy deer, you know.
Right, but you would eat, but so you're getting back straps off those big trophy bucks you're shooting.
Sure. But, you know, like I say in one of the stories coming in part 2, even buzzards prefer hog meat. You know, they left a deer laying that we'd killed the day before, and we're all over a pig I stuck, you know, with my longbow. But my buddy said, wow, even buzzards prefer hog meat.
Over deer meat. So you would hunt with a longbow, and is that what you would do to get your food? Because you didn't want to take want to take a shot and be loud.
Right.
No, but I had downloads. See, I haven't brought that up yet. But I had a master loader, James Shedd, Captain Easy from Alpine Gun Range. He created me when it got tough and the pressure got worse. They were out to get me when they heard I was hunting again. They, you know, were listening for shots more and putting more men out in the range, so I had to combat that with downloads. So I had Captain Easy made me up some reduced charge loads, 100 grain, 7mm bullets, hollow points, and we'd drill them out, and I'd put epoxy putty in the tip. Those would make ballistic tips for that 100 grain because they didn't offer them. They didn't have them made. And he put about what amounted to a 1/4 inch of powder in the bottom of the brass. And they were about 3 inches low at 50 yards and 7 inches low at 100, but only 14 inches low at 200. But I'd have that in the chamber. The game wardens figured it out pretty quick. They were holding them up, saying, look like he's got 2 or 3 different loads here, and they'd shake them by their ear and listen to how much powder was in them. They were onto that.
How did they get the loads?
They pulled them out of my backpack when they caught me.
Oh, okay.
And they
okay.
realized I had some different ammo there.
Okay.
They saw the different bullet tips. They saw something going on. They started shaking them by their ears and stuff. Look like he's got 2 or 3 different loads here, you know, and then they figured it out later, and I told them. But those downloads were so quiet. On a windy day, if you were 200 yards from it, I tested them. You couldn't hear it go off. But with the homemade epoxy ballistic tip, with a download, they spanked. It was like I told that game one when they gave me my rifle back. He said, I'm surprised you used the gun that loud. And I said, well, I had downloads, 100 grain bullets. He said, wouldn't that cripple some of them up? I said, no, they spanked. You could neck shoot one with him high neck, crush 3 vertebrae. It just put them on the ground kicking. So when I rattled them deer up so close, you didn't need a big gun anyway. But if I saw one at 300 yards, it was sighted for full heat, I'd just rechamber full heat, and I could take a 300-yard shot. So I had that. It was like a double-barrel gun.
I still can't get over the fact of shooting a deer on someone else's property at that range and not be. I'd be scared to freaking death to walk from where I shot to that gun.
How would you test it out? You said you tested it out that if the wind dried at 200 yards, they wouldn't be able to hear you.
Well, I got a buddy of mine to fire it for me. I said, drive 200 yards away from me. I'm going to stay here and listen to it. And it was just like a 22 short in the wind.
That's it.
It wouldn't carry anywhere.
Yeah.
And that ranch is so big, they didn't have. Once you got, when you got caught coming in from, is it Baffin Bay there?
Yeah.
So you got caught from coming in on Baffin Bay. Was Baffin Bay the place that, to me, that would be the most logical place to have entered, anyways?
It's too hot.
What do you mean it's too hot?
Well, there's too much heat in the bay. Watching King Ranch on the North Shore, Kenedy Ranch on the South Shore, and they're working boat hunters. There's a lot of boat hunters going in and out of Baffin Bay.
So the game wardens watch that bay all the time?
Oh, yeah. That's a bad place to go in.
Okay.
That's like getting dropped off at the police station to go rob a bank.
Well, but when you get dropped off of the road between Raymondsville and Kingsville, there's fucking 5,000 fucking Border Patrol guys there.
Yeah, but that's a brief chance. That's just momentary risk. And then once you're in there, you own it. Yeah, that's the way I felt about it. But the odds are a lot safer getting in off the highway and walk all the way back. They're guarding that shore in the bay, north side and south side. They're watching it.
What's it? I'm gonna try to pull it up on the it's the bay. What's it called?
Baffin Bay.
Baffin
Bay.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can find it and pull it up for Now that we're all high tech now, we can do things like this, and that way the listener can see, have a visual of what we're talking about.
Right.
Well, the YouTube watcher.
Well, yeah.
So when you would go in on Baffin Bay, the guy dropped you off in just a flat bottom boat, just a trout fishing boat, I guess, or whatever he used.
Yeah, commercial fishing.
And he
boat.
dropped you off, and then he called the game wardens on you.
No, he had it all set up before he even loaded me in the boat. Yeah.
I'm surprised that they didn't just get you as soon as you stepped foot on the ranch.
Well, they made a run at me. They didn't know at what point I'd tell him to put me on shore. I didn't want him to know that. I didn't trust him. So we were turning towards, Black Bluff and all, and I said, take me to shore right here, right now. I just sprung it on him. Well, they were down there around Black Bluff and all, looking for me to get kicked out further east. But I got out quick. Well, then a truck came running down the beach, and a plane flew down the beach. They were out there staked out, expecting me to get out in their lap. Didn't happen. So they had to come my way to get to me. They'd watched me wade in 100 yards. They saw me, gun up high over my head, rattling horns, and bag of clothes, dry clothes to change into quick in a trash bag, and, that backpack, and I'm taking all them waves, and they watched me walk that 100 yards to shore.
Did you know then that you were fucked?
Mm-mm. I didn't know.
So you didn't realize that they had seen you?
No, not till I heard the plane come down the beach.
Then you knew you were in trouble.
I said, the gig's up. I got to go. I got to move. They seen me coming in off the water. But it was rough. I mean, the waves were 3 and 4 feet, and there's nobody on the water, but I figured I might be getting seen washed from the shore going in that day, and I was. But they knew I was coming anyway. They were laying wait.
If you wouldn't have got caught, would you still been done this? Would you have done it for a lot more trips, or was that going to be it?
Once it became a felony, I would have thrown the towel a year later. It wasn't worth going to prison for me. It's like the game wardens asked old Don Cordy. He knew me well, and they knew it, and they said, "Has Charlie really quit?" He said, "Charlie's not stupid. He's not going to prison for deer hunting. That ain't happening." So, back in that cold spell, game warden and deputy sheriff came to my door, act like they're doing a welfare check on my dogs. What they were doing was seeing if I was in North Texas.
Oh, just
South.
recently?
Yeah,
Okay.
February the 14th.
So they were checking to see if you were...
On the cold spell?
When he finally told me the other officer was a game warden, I knew what was going down then. That deputy I wasn't familiar with, but strangely enough, his name was Josh Beaty. I met a highway patrolman in Somerville County there recently, and his name's Beaty. But when he said, "I'm deputy sheriff of Somerville, this guy's a game warden," and I knew what was going on. Okay, I see what's going on now. They thought late February like that, cold weather, that would be the time I might be tempted to go strike the Kenedy.
And you told them that they'd see you're retired now.
Yeah. I said, boys, that was all 22 to 44 years ago. I don't do that anymore. I knew what was up. Parks and Wildlife sent them out there to see where I was.
So this is kind of a shitty picture, but
That's a horrible picture.
I can blow it up.
There you go.
So how would you come in here? So there's the Upper Laguna Madre.
For people that are watching this, Laguna Madre is not just a narrow river right there. How wide is it right there? A couple miles?
I mean, of course it's zoomed out.
Yeah, it might be 2.5 towards 3 miles north to south, but east to west it's 10 or so there. What you're looking at is about 10 miles, 10 or 12 miles to the Laguna Madre.
Where are you going in at on this?
Well, just as quick as that bay dips here on the left.
Right here?
Right there, right where that area is at, it's where I bailed.
That's where you bail, right there.
I went due south from there, just straight line down. They were out there at White Bluff, like I said, Black Bluff. That's where they were.
Can you blow that up anymore, Andy?
Not much. Which one is Black Bluff?
Well, out there to your right, we're at the end of Bay, right down in there. And that's probably where they were at.
Where did you get in the boat at?
Back over here at the end of that down King's End. There's Loyola Beach right there. All that city, that yellow colors is Loyola.
To your right,
Yeah.
straight down.
I can't.
No, your left. Go across the water. Up. See that yellow up there? That's Loyola Beach.
Where it
Up here?
says Cayo. No, up to your left.
Yeah, right.
See where it says Cayo del Grande?
No, Jeff, I don't.
Okay, keep going left. Go left. Go left.
Okay.
Go down. Right there.
Yeah, all that yellow to the left side of the water is Loyola Beach. Well, come out here on the point. They call it Kratz Point. Out here on this point.
Go down. Go to the
Stop,
right.
Stop. The butt of that area is sitting at the docks. There was piers in a row right there. And I got in Liberty's boat there.
And that's public property right there.
Private property. Little places. Lots are owned by private
But that's not part of a ranch then. That's all
public. That peninsula, out Lyle and all. You can drive to all that. You can fish all that side of that point, both sides, north and south.
Okay.
That Kratz Point's where I got in the boat.
Where's that from, Sarita?
Okay, Sarita is back to the southwest of there.
Is that the road that from Sarita that goes back to towards Laguna Madre? Is that where that goes to?
No,
right there?
The road out of Sarita goes to La Parra Ranch House.
Okay.
South side of the bay.
Okay, that's what I didn't know. Okay, but that's where you're going in at. So was that a couple of miles to where they dropped you off at?
He took me about 3.5, 4 miles across.
3.5, 4 miles, and they were expecting you to go further back towards Laguna Madre, but you went in before that.
Yeah, I had a feeling they had that figured, and I cut in.
Okay.
I said, "Take me now."
And that's is that the Kenedy or the King there?
South side's Kenedy Ranch, north side's King Ranch.
So you're on the King where you're going.
No,
I mean, you're on the
Kenedy.
Kenedy. Okay, because that's where you did all your. You stayed away from the King because the
Yeah.
Cowboys were going to kill you.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So once you got in on this, then the airplane buzzed by right after you got in the brush.
I heard a truck rumble down the beach first, I think, and I listened to that and was paying attention to that. And then here I had this big buck located, and you read the story, but I'm holding because I've jumped $5 in a swell trying to get to that big deer and kill him. I'd left my gun at my backpack. When I went back and got my gun after I'd spotted him going, I left my rattling horns in the tree where I changed clothes. So when I got to this pipeline, I remember, I said, man, my rattling horns are in that tree where I changed clothes. So I ran back fast, straight line through the live oak, and I got to the rattling horns, and as I was coming back, I walked upon this really big deer, wide, multi-point, massive yellow horn deer, laying down. I just cut my head back, keep my eyes off of him, act like I didn't see him, and went to my backpack to get the rifle. Then I straight lined at him. Shouldn't have done that. I should have went back the way I came where I'd be able to see him without any other game noticing me. I topped the hill in some rolling grassland, and in a swell there was 5 more bucks. One of them stood up, this big heavy horn 8-point big beer can basis, and he would look at me, and he could see that big deer I was after laying down over there by himself to the right, and he'd look at that one. These others started getting up and getting nervous. I just ducked to the grass trying to figure out what to do, and then I hear planes coming down the beach, and I said, I've got to make a break. And I just ran up under this tree, and plane passed and circled. When he banked, I took off. I looked as I ran across that pipeline with my backpack, one arm running across that pipeline, and those 6 bucks were running about 600 yards from me up that pipeline, and he was taking up the rear. I couldn't even keep looking at him. I had to go. I had to get over there in the brush and get harnessed in my pack and get moving.
What do you think he'd have scored?
There's no telling. 180. There's no telling. He was in the high 170s easy.
And what people up north don't realize is or people that are hunting high fence range, a true.
He was a true trophy whitetail deer from South Texas, no doubt.
So I've never seen the geography of all this. I can't believe you're that close to the fucking beach.
I was 3/4 of a mile deep when I saw the buck.
Right. But the ocean's right there.
Well, no, the ocean's on the other side of Laguna Madre.
I understand that, but that's not how many miles are you from the ocean?
About
5
8, 9, something like 10.
Yeah.
10.
Laguna Madre is
that's like
salt water.
That's like shooting a big ass deer in Florida, to me.
Well, the ocean that's all salt water. All them places, it's ocean. It's just not a beach deal. When he's saying beach, he's saying a place where you go, where you can get. It's not a beach like Daytona Beach.
No, I understand that, but the fucking ocean is right there, and that's insane to me. It's not like It's not like you're Central Texas or anything like that. Like you're at the fucking beach shooting big ass deer. That's crazy to me.
Padre Island's got big bucks all up and down it.
Really?
Not too many people know that.
I didn't know that.
Some people do know that, and it's public hunting. You can go.
Really?
There's islands that you can hunt legal. Yeah.
And there's big deer.
Big bucks with nilgai all over them. I think it's faced a lot of pressure in recent years, and they've been shot down.
So what makes the deer down there so big? Huh?
God put them there. That's just.
But it wasn't like a high fence deer got out or anything. It's just that's how
Genetics.
they grow. That's just how they grow down there.
They've been there since the beginning of time.
Thickest country in the world, or thickest country we have.
Yeah.
I mean, it's thistles and briars and mesquites and oaks, and it's everything they need.
Yeah, a buddy of mine described it best like this. He said, you think you've seen it all, and then it's like a curtain in a theater opens up, and it looks entirely different all over again. It's a wonderland. There's nothing like it. And you go from the thick brush to the beautiful sand dunes, and the mix and the draws and the necks. It's just beautiful.
What on dry years like this, does it make the hunting harder or easier?
Well, it's better when it's late because they've gone into a winter in a rut, poor. Then they go through the hard winter suffering, and they're quick to hit the clearance for the winter weeds springing up. And that's when you see, literally hundreds of deer in the open in groups of 5 to 8 to 10 or 12, and you just cherry pick that's what I went that late for, just to cherry pick the big deer out of the clearance.
When was your favorite time to go hunting?
First 2 weeks of December, third week of December.
So that they were hunting on that ranch also at the same time.
Well, not the first 7 years, but then in my return, there was pastures hunted. And then like I've told you before, some of their guides were breaking the perimeters and the boundaries they were supposed to be hunting in. They started hunting unhunted areas, places called Holy Land that were just never to be hunted. And they were popping shots back there, getting people select deer for big tips probably. That one guy got busted on it and they fired him. But, like this black warden that served a warrant on me said one time, he said, there ain't no line drawn in the sand as to who will shoot a trophy buck poaching or not. He said, I've caught bankers, lawyers, doctors, preachers. I said, have you caught the Pope? He said, no, but I'm looking for him. He knows how tempting it is to shoot them big deer down there.
What's the one that got away that's driving you the craziest?
Yeah, I've told you that red nunley buck up at Ensenada, LaSalle County. He's still the biggest one I ever saw by 20 inches, easy. No question. I should have brought the big rack book and shown you a picture of one that looked just like him. I'll send you a shot of that deer.
What if you could do it all over again, would you do it again?
Why not? You only live once.
Well, that's a fair answer.
I don't have any regrets. I didn't plan it out, scheme it up, dream it up. It just ended up happening the way it did. I went down there to try to hunt legal. That didn't work out. And then once I saw I could get away with it outlaw hunting, I just head over heels.
Tell everyone the story again, how your first outlaw deer down on the King and Kenedy.
Well, what happened was these local outlaws come into taxidermy all the time, and they talked me into going with them to mount some ducks for them. I said, all right. So, we went one Sunday afternoon, cloudy, misty, dreary day, and we were laying down, came over out in the bed of the truck. His girlfriend drove us, and we pulled up out there laying in the bed of the truck where we couldn't be seen and waited on one car to pass. And when it got 300 or 400 yards past us, okay, y'all go. And we all jumped over the fence. It looked like a SEALs platoon taking over the ranch. We bailed over the fence in broad daylight. We rattled up some deer, but we were waiting for something good. And then we got to a clearing, and I saw this pretty good buck out there about 300 yards, and they said, go ahead and shoot that buck. We may not see a good one today and get you some meat and carry him out. We got him out whole, but it's just a 7-point buck. But I circled 300 yards by myself when I topped the hill. I'm green to it then. Any deer looked good to me. So I threw the scope on him, and that 9-power scope turned that 7-point into an axis deer for me. He looked big to me, and I shot him, broke his neck. And my buddy Super Coop was with me, and they rattled him up a real nice 10-point, and he didn't have a shell in the chamber. Snap, that run off, blew and ran off. So me and Coop went back 2 or 3 days later. I killed a real nice 10-point, 140-inch buck. He shot a 13-point, 145-inch buck. And, it was on then. You couldn't have kept either one of us from doing it at that point. We just went crazy,
So it just got in your blood then?
Oh, yeah.
So is there a highway that runs through the...
No.
What's that, 77?
That's 77.
That's the one. Yeah, there's one that goes north to south, but there's nothing that goes back towards Laguna Madre.
So you would come in off of 77? Is that what it is?
If I had a hold of that mouse, I'd show you what time it is.
Well, because there's Baffin Bay
Yep.
right there, and that's roughly where you came in.
No, you're high and left. Come down over here. Nope. A little left now. Whoa. I got out right there.
Right in there.
And I moved due south. I spent the night 3+ miles deep first night. Then when I heard all the vehicles crawling in there after having been, pressured, I went east, and I went almost out to where that water, the neck of the bay, comes down in. I almost went to that, cut back due south. And I started probably approaching 8-9 miles deep from the water. And I stayed in there that third day looking for that big, and I shot it, and bullet blew out in front, missed him. And that's what let them catch up with me. They tracked me from where they found my tracks at the the Tia Chan windmill, and then they tracked me all the way east, all the way south, all the way that 3 or 4 mile circle I made, and then they give up. Mm-hmm. I buried my trail. I went 300 or 400 yards circle in the heavy brush, came back to where I there was a break where I could watch my back trail.
Mm-hmm.
And I rattled one time when I hit that hilltop, rattled up a nice little buck, took his picture. Then I went over and watched my back trail for about an hour and a half waiting on sundown. I was going to cross a big prairie and go over to the bunch of live oak about 4 miles away to the west. And they had crossed right behind me because they told me at the courthouse they were 2 hours right underneath me looking for my tracks. They'd lost my trail completely. I ditched them.
Mm-hmm.
And so they gave up. They regrouped. And they said, we're not going to get him now. He just got back in the brush. They said, let's just go on back to the truck. They got outside the brush to walk the easier path. And when they got outside the brush, they topped the hill, and there I was sitting down against my backpack. There he is right there. Get your hands up. And I come up to one knee and turn around and look. Put my hands up when I saw him, and there was 8 men running wide open at me in a wall about 18 yards or less. Guns drawn, ran right up to me, stuck 4 or 5 pistols to my head, put me face down, handcuffed me. I mean, it went down so quick, I had no chance to jump up and make a break.
Mm-hmm. So how many miles is it from this red line to this red line all the way down here?
See where the intercoastal canal comes into all that inlet area?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, probably from that water furthest west to the highway, you're looking at about 18 miles out there at the long span north, 22 miles from 77 to Laguna Madre. You're looking at a 20-mile square area that I hunted for all those years.
Was that all Kenedy right there? It says Armstrong.
This is all, I think this is all Kenedy.
Yeah, when you see Armstrong Ranch, that's where the Kenedy ends.
Okay, so the Armstrong is where it's at. That's a different ranch there then.
That's southern Kenedy County.
But it's not the Kenedy Ranch.
No.
You didn't hunt on the Armstrong.
Never.
You just stayed in that block right there.
Yeah. 20
by 20 miles.
Yeah.
That's what, 120,000 acres?
440,000 acres.
No, the 20 by 20.
Yep. They got a little bit over here on the west side of the highway, but most of the Kenedy Ranch is up there in that block.
Were rattlesnakes bad? Did you ever worry about stumbling
He said
upon
never
one
even
of them?
seen one.
Saw one.
That's just hard to believe because they're everywhere down there.
My buddy George saw a lot of them up in the Dimmitt County in Piloncillo, Dan Harrison. But, one night he said, I stepped over the fence. He reached in his pocket for his pen light. Okay, thank you. And he just stepped around him. That's how quick you can bump into one in Dimmitt County. But over in the Kenedy, I never saw a rattlesnake. I've got a story coming in part 2 about finding an 8.5-foot bull snake. And it was funny.
That's a big old bull snake, too.
Yeah, well, I had my bow, and I just took an arrow and shot it down through his head. I wanted his skin because this cop that I took made bows, and so I wanted it for a camo strip over the bow. That was becoming a hot thing to do with longbow custom building. And I said, I want that skin. He was beautiful. And he was hissing and growling at us, and I pulled an arrow and just thumped one right through his head, but I hit him just in front of the eyes. It wasn't a deadly shot. Pinned him to the ground. I said, well, I just did it again. I just pulled another arrow, and I thumped him right through the same place, and I had 2 arrow shafts sitting in the middle of his nose area, I had him pinned to the ground. At that point, I said, I'm not going to dull another razor. I just bent over and grabbed the arrows in one hand and reached to put a foot on his neck and hold him down. I was going to pull the arrows and then shove one through his brain.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did, he came up both shafts and got right in my face so quick I couldn't believe it. Mouth growling like hell right in my face. I let go and Link jerked back. When I jerked back, my backpack weighed 100-something pounds.
So there you went.
It started pulling me backwards. I fought it for 10 yards, and then I said, this ain't going to win. This no-win situation. I just gave it up and hit the deck. And this guy was the guy that took me on the moose hunt, Richard. He started laughing. I said, that ain't funny. I could have been injured. And he goes, you ought to
could have been
he
injured.
Said, you ought to seen the look on your face. And I said, you're fixing to have one just like it if I put that snake in your face. So I skinned him out, killed him. I skinned him out and salted him, took his skin. It was a big, beautiful skin. I gave him to that cop, and I never got it back.
8.5 foot?
At least.
That's got to be a world record
It
almost.
was a hell of a snake, beautiful snake, I really kind of regretted killing him. I probably should have left him alone.
That's a big old snake.
That's a big snake.
Yeah.
And bull snakes, they might not be deadly,
Oh, they'll
but
make
they'll
you have a
make
heart
you hurt
attack.
yourself.
Yeah.
Make you shit your pants and then have a heart attack.
Now, is it the black indigo snake?
The blue indigo.
Blue indigo. Did you see those down there?
Yeah, I saw them often,
And they kill rattlesnakes.
They eat them. That's part of why I didn't see rattlers in the Kenedy. The blue indigos keep them in check, but the wild hogs keep them in check more than anything. I'll tell you this story that's coming in part 2. I came back to my camp prepared to take showers. What I'd done the year before on a 16-day hunt was I'd brought a PCV pipe. I was going to bottleneck the windmill pipe, and I had a little camper trailer supply shower head, and I was going to use that to hook up at windmills and take a bath at night. And when I got back to my camp, it was missing. And I said, uh-oh.
That's not good.
The game wardens may have found this camp and, drug up some stuff I had buried there. And I got to looking around, and it kind of alarmed me. And I got confused, and I said, well, I think hogs rooted it up because I had it buried. I said, that's all this going on here. But I said, where's the shower head? It's been taken. And I didn't understand it for a few days. And then one day I was up on top of the sand dune on the lip of the den, evening time, and I was looking, and I saw this buck. He's walking from, through a break in the live oak. Well, I just grabbed my bow and went after him. I got about 350 yards out there halfway to him, and there lay that shower hose with the handle. And it was all chewed up from hogs chewing it up, fighting over it. And I went, I know what happened now. They rooted it up, and they thought it was a snake, and they took off with it, and it was a pack of pigs, and they just started fighting over it, chewing it all to pieces. And I started laughing, and I said, I bet God was up there laughing his ass off over them pigs fighting over that shower hose. It was about 4 foot of hose. But anyway.
So did you have the same campsites every year that you'd use?
Only that Devil's Den and one up at the Parita. I had a couple of camps set up, but, I would show up at them at night. And another funny thing happened was the pack rats loved me. They thought I was Santa Claus. When I'd show up every year, they'd sound off, like, kiki, kiki, he's here, Santa Claus is here. And they knew my backpack would have tortillas and Snickers bars and all kinds of stuff in it. And they could leap 4 feet to get on it when I hung it in midair. I mean, they'd get in my backpack no matter what I tried to keep them out of it with. Well, they got into this $80 tube of steroid cream I'd used for poison oak that summer, the year before. And so they found that and ate it. Killed every one of them. Oof. There wasn't a pack rat in the Devil's Den that year, not a peep.
You got into poison oak?
I had the summer before, a year and a half earlier. I got into a bunch of poison oak all day hunting.
Oof.
Yeah.
Is that miserable?
That was the worst case of it I'd ever had. Uh-huh. My eyes swole completely shut. I bubbled up all over, solid blisters all over my whole body. Yeah.
See, I've never gotten into poison oak. And I don't even think I've gotten into poison ivy, but I've heard it's just, you'll drive yourself crazy.
Tony got into poison oak in Kingsville one year. We stopped somewhere, and he was dicking around. My dad was getting gas. We were going to my grandparents' condo at Padre, and he was dicking around doing something. When Dad was getting gas and he got back in the truck, by the time we got to South Padre, his old ass was all fucking red and shit, and that's what he'd got into. I guess it's bad down there.
Don't ever burn it. We got a stack of firewood down on White Rock Creek, the Bear Mills Lake, and I was crappie fishing, sand bass fishing in that creek with an old buddy there, and we had a short lunch crappie, Well, there was a stack of firewood cut there that man owned the property, and it had poison ivy had grown over it. Well, we just drug it out of there carefully and threw it in the fire. Well, that smoke is the worst way to get it. When it burns, you get in the smoke from poison ivy, you've had it. That's the worst case of it I've ever had.
Got in your lungs and stuff? Or just all over your skin?
The smoke puts it on you bad. Mm-hmm. And I imagine it has something to do with inhalation. But it was the worst case of poison ivy I ever got off of that. But that poison oak on that audit hunt was even worse. But that steroid cream killed the hell out of pack rats, I can tell you that.
Did the game wardens visit you all the time when you lived down there?
No. They stayed out of that big shop I worked at. They didn't hassle me there.
But they knew you were doing it.
They knew where I was and what I was doing.
Did they come by your house a bunch?
One of my techniques was I never let my driver's license show where I lived. I'd get it renewed. I'd move. I always did that. It was one part of my ways of not being found in case a warrant came out on me.
He don't live here no more.
It saved me one time, that contest winner story in part 1. That girlfriend of mine and me shot $3 and we came back with 2.5, put them in the refrigerator at my house, and my boss pulled that joke on me. Had 2 off-duty police officers come in from the gun range next door and say, we're looking for Charles Beaty, and flashed their badges at me. And, we understand you've been antelope hunting again, Charles. Well, me and Betty had been caught the year before with this other girlfriend. So I looked over at Jack, and he was snickering. And I said, Jack, I was just fixing to tell him, sorry, boys, I ain't taking y'all to my house. Got bad news. It's America. It's a free country. I ain't got to tell you where I live. But, Jack got a kick out of it, and I said, You will not win that rifle at Tarrant County Sportsman's Club this year now, Jack. I will. I said, I've stayed out of that contest for you. I'm not staying out of it this year. You're going to pay for what you just did to me. And so I did. I entered that contest and won it by 59 inches.
What kind of deer? Tell us about that deer.
Well, that's that 180 buck I killed 9 days after I blew it on the 30-inch spread. You know, that 11-day hunt.
Go ahead and tell everybody about it, because a lot of people they've heard it, but they want to hear the story again.
Well, what happened on that 12-point was I was out in a peninsula in the Parita country. I wished he had the air on it, but you don't have like a top-all map where the oak is distinguished from the prairies and all the breaks.
I don't know if you can get that.
You go and get a top-all map. Mapsco's got top-all maps that show the brush. But I was out in the finger, and it was cracking daylight. The sun was just coming up, and I was probably 150 yards from the tip of that brush, but I rattled there, and when I did, this buck, when I saw him coming, it was just rack, butt. You know, he's just heaving and hoeing, coming straight at me. So I got ready, got my gun up. He stopped once when I looked at him in the scope. I went, 12 perfect points. He'll score good enough to shoot him. I knew he was 170-something. But he turned out to be 180 gross. But he ran right to me. After I hit the horns, he come again. And when he started coming again, I just turned and got ready. But I was facing due east. He came right to where the sun was shining through the live oaks there. And when he stopped and looked at me, I got on his shoulder, and the sun still right in my scope, and it's glaring in and out orange. I couldn't really get the crosshairs focused. And just as he took off, I just pulled with him. And the whole scope went blank. Sun came in and blinded me. Pow! I said, well, it looked good, but I'm not sure. And I listened, and I heard him crashing through the brush. And I go, he's down. So I had to dig all the way by my backpack, get my knife out, and I go over there. And when I get there, he's hung up in the brush. He's still standing up, and he's heaving and hoeing. He heard me come up to the edge of the brush, that thick, short shrub oak, and he stopped and turned, drug his rack loose, and turned and looked up at me, and he goes, he hit the deck. And I went up to him, and immediately I said, this is a 178, 179. I knew he scored real well. I said, Jack just lost the rifle. He ended up being the one I entered in the contest. I had another buck that was a 160-plus buck. He would have won the gun, too, but I just entered that biggest one. But, you know, he shouldn't have messed with me. He'd had that Browning BBR 270 the year it was made, 1980.
Now, was he shooting his deer legal, or was he doing the same way you did?
He had access to free hunting, invite to 28 sections next to the Suggs and the Rocker B Ranch, San Angelo. And he was killing 145, 155-inch deer every year and winning the rifle every year in Tarrant County. And, you know, all the local deer hunters hated him for doing so good every year. But, you know, you couldn't hate Jack. Everybody loved Jack. He was a great guy. Everybody loved him. But, you know, he's a taxidermist there. That's the one I worked for in Fort Worth. Mostly Jack Newhouse. But, yeah, that...
Now, you were working in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
Okay, this guy wasn't the guy at the King Ranch, or Kingsville you worked for.
No, in 76, I moved from Fort Worth to Kingsville. Went to work for the big taxidermy there. Worked there 7 years doing all that poaching. Come back to Fort Worth, got in church, quit poaching, turned in all my heads. 6 years, lived a different life. And then my backstabbing buddies, you know, seduced my wife out from under me. She thought he had money. He'd won a $700,000 insurance settlement from a cement truck running over him on a motorcycle. Oof. Messed his leg up pretty bad. But, you know, my wife being raised in church, she wasn't very worldly. She didn't know what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. He'd done blown all that money out there, came back to Texas, nearly broke, blew the rest, then was broke. And I was training him taxidermy for free. But she thought he had all that money. I busted him, finding a practice, bunch of scribbling. She practiced signing her new check writing name, Mrs. Rebecca Browning. Uh-oh. And when I confronted him about it, he goes, okay, and he confessed the whole thing to me. Been going on for 4 months. So, you know, the divorce was inevitable because of that. They got real tough with me. You're going to see some stuff coming part-time. I'm not going to tell it yet. But it was a world record Boone and Crockett divorce. Her parents got nasty and drug out the money, bought the big lawyers. They knew they were going to lose custody of my son because my buddy was going to testify about their affair. And I ended up getting locked up on her lies, felony perjury and forgery and conspiracies, and a notary public helped authorize a no-waiver contest plea, presented it to a corrupt judge that bought off judge, and they gave her a 100% restraining order against me. She'd already dumped my buddy and was running off with a banker to Missouri. She was trying to escape the whole thing. And that's what she did. She tucked tail and ran. But I lost my boy. I still wasn't going to go back to the poaching. But the cops talked me into going. And when I went, it was back on. I mean, I was mad at the state of Texas for giving her my son and all they put me through. And I got vengeance that first year. I started caping off bucks, dragging them out in roads. I wanted them to know what I was doing. And they found them, and they told me. They said, we thought George and Dennis did that. And I said, no, that was me.
So you would cape a big deer and just leave it where they could find it?
No, I did it on purpose. I didn't like what I saw myself becoming, but I was lashing back at what had happened to me. And you're going to see all the details later.
So this is the best. I've looked everywhere. This is the best that I can find of something that resembles the terrain of the Kenedy.
Yeah. See that straight line in the middle of it, due south from La Parra Ranch? The Riskin sits at the bottom of it. Can't you Google Riskin Ranch? Risken?
I'm sure I could. But
That's it right in the bottom corner. See
this
that?
one?
No, that's it to your left. Right there's the Riskin.
The little,
Tunis?
No, to your right and to the bottom right there. There's
I
a little
I believe that's it right there at the bottom.
There's a little thing cut out. Go up, Andy.
No, I'm probably wrong. Google Riskin Ranch. See what you can get there. Yeah. Yeah,
it's only 23,000 acres is that section you're hunting because it says that block is 23,000 acres.
Yeah, but see, below there was more of the brush that I hunted. I could have at one time ventured south into the Armstrong. I'm not positive.
Now, what's that say there? I can't even pronounce that. Hobensilas? I can't.
Jabancia division.
No.
This right here.
You took Spanish in high school. What's that,
Yeah.
Andy?
I don't know.
I can't pronounce it.
I guarantee
Jaboncillo.
My buddy, it's an H for a J.
Hobensia.
Jaboncillo.
174,000 acres right there. So you take that, and that is 200,000 acres right in there.
They'll go plumb to the water.
Yeah.
And like I say, they own a couple of miles deep, 2 or 3 miles deep back to the west side of 77.
But I'm just talking about right there on that side.
So look up the Riskin now.
You can see the live oak. I could go over there and point where they caught me. I can see the live oak now. Yeah.
Is it up here?
Right under the word acres, that finger down there.
This one?
That's the Moto Negra neck. Where under the S.
Yeah, right here.
Now it drops down an inch, and then go back left 2 inches. Yeah, I was caught back in the brush, right on the edge of the live oak. That's where I was caught. Till you're right about 4 inches. Right in no, not that. Out on that left-hand side. Right there. I was arrested right there.
Right
It's
there.
a long fucking walk back for the damn trucks for all of y'all.
They didn't know where they were. They were lost.
So did you have to walk them back?
I'm going to tell you what happened. They looked at their GPSs and they said, well, tell them at the truck to describe where they're at. I said, you know where the windmills are all around here? I go, yeah. You know the fence line? Yeah. They said, all right, listen to what they're going to say. And they described this north-south fence line they were on. They came down away from that Montenegro windmill and turned on that north fence and went up a ways, mile and a half. He said, you know where they're talking about? And I said, yeah. He said, point at them. Well, I'm handcuffed. I took a quarter of a step to my left, and I pointed my nose up like that. And he looked at the arrow on the GPS, and he said, he's pointing right at him. Will you take us to him? And I said, yeah. And he goes, stay right there. The man knows where you're at. He's bringing us to you. So I had to lead them to the truck. They literally didn't know where they were, and they kept wanting to stay out of the brush. And I said, boys, we need to cut back. Y'all are going the wrong way. They were going northwest. We needed to go northeast to the truck. Then we finally got close, and he said, have them pop a shot. And they popped a shot. And then Mike Fain, he got excited. He was, glad he caught me. And he popped a shot back right in my ear with me handcuffed right beside him. I just turned and looked at him. That kind of pissed me off. And the other, I think it was Anthony, he looked at me and he looked at Mike and he goes, I don't think Charles liked you popping that shot in his eardrum, Mike. And he goes, oh, I'm sorry, Charlie. Bullshit. He knew what he was doing. I didn't want to scare me, but I don't scare. But,
So
appreciate that.
What time of day was this that they caught you?
30 minutes, but no, it was 10 minutes before sundown, 30 minutes before dark.
They were fucked in at dark.
They're fixed to have to get on fence lines and walk back to the windmill.
You'd have been having to do a rescue mission of the game warden.
See, we crossed one fence and then did straight through the brush right at the truck. I took them straight at it.
But I mean, seriously, at dark, they would have been in a mess if they didn't know where they were at.
Yeah.
That's not a place to get turned around backwards on if you don't know where you're going.
Couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of guys.
Now, I thought you liked the game wardens.
I liked them. They liked me. But, you know, like my boss said one time down there when I shot up all them nail guy on the road, I had one down close and was going to go after it. He said, don't go back. They're going to be laying on that one. I said, I want him. He goes, don't go back. They're going to be laying on that one. They probably seen all four of them laying out there dead. He said, you need to leave that alone. I said, man, I hate to let him lay there. I wanted to mount his head. And he goes, let's leave me and get another one later. He said, they need the exercise anyway.
They have the most dangerous job in America.
Yeah.
Or one of them. And I appreciate the game wardens for what they do. Yeah. We come from different sides on that deal, and I understand that. But I respect and appreciate the game wardens for what they do. I know where you're coming from, and things are different today than they were back then.
Yeah, it's over.
What did
Did you ever relax while you were doing this? Like even when you got off of the ranch and you're back home, like are you constantly in a state of?
Every time a car door slams, the cops come in.
My door could get kicked in at any minute.
That was my home. Mm-hmm. It's like you feel when you go home in the evening and go inside your house.
Yeah, but
when I got in that ranch, I lived there. That was my home. It was total peace and harmony. Now, the shit could hit the fan, and when it did, I had to become a different person. But I love being there.
But what about when you got to your house? You weren't worried all the time? I'd be constantly, and I think it's a difference between me and you. We don't do this kind of stuff, so we look at it. You were relaxed when it was over?
Only time I had a little fear and guilty conscience was when they were treating me and Beaty like it was homicide shooting that antelope. They literally treat you like a homicide investigation subject, a murder suspect. They, tried to do all they could to just permanently plant a fear factor in me that didn't happen. It was temporary.
But when you were home, like at home, and in the middle of the night you'd hear a door slam, you didn't think, oh, shit, it's a game warden's fixing to come in the house.
No.
See, I'd be scared to death all the time. Everywhere I went, I'd be looking behind me thinking, oh, they're fixing to bust me.
Every night I would lay my head down to go to bed. I'd be like, well, I'm going to get ready. Tonight's the night. They're going to have enough evidence. That fucking search warrant's going to be signed by the judge, and they're going to get me tonight.
Well, those 2 weeks under investigation for that antelope, I felt what you're talking about. But outside of that, I knew what I was doing well enough that they didn't have any way to get to me and pin it on me.
That's crazy. I'd be scared to death. Every time I went on that ranch at Kenedy Ranch, I'd be scared the whole time I was in there. I couldn't do nothing like that. I'd hell no. But when I left, I'd be looking behind me the whole time.
Well, one of the cops I took, he's still a nervous wreck about it. 30 years now, and he's still a
Statute of limitations are off for him.
2 years, it was over.
Yeah, he's good.
Is that what the statute of limitations is, 2 years?
On a state game charge back then, that was it.
2 years.
1990.
You're good. He's good then.
He's good.
But he's still nervous?
Yeah, sure he is.
I bet when you come on a podcast, he's like, Harley, don't say my name.
If you think he's nervous now, wait till part 2 comes out.
Because everybody, we've got a mutual friend, Jim Kern. And Jim said you're the craziest son of a bitch he's ever known.
Likewise.
Well, but Jim told me, he said everybody knew what was going on.
Yeah.
He said it wasn't a secret. Everybody knew if you wanted to shoot a big deer that you were the guy to call.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't have the balls to go with me. I offered to take Jim. He goes, "Nah, Turkey, I don't trust you."
Yeah, I can see why I'd be scared. What, did you ever have anybody quit on you inside?
I had to tackle one guy for panicking when a truck came right at us. He went the wrong way. I had to chase him down and tackle him, and I had to shake some sense into him and say, "Look, you're not going to get me caught. You're running the wrong way. Now, you do what I tell you." And so we went about 600-700 yards, and we were crossing this north-south fence. And I said, "Now, when I cross, you do just what I did." And I went to a swell, got in the lowest part of it, rolled over the fence real easy, set my pack down, picked it back up, and backed up into the edge of the live oak. And I said, "Now, come on and do just what I did." He said, "Well, I don't think you saw a truck." I said, "I saw a truck. He didn't see it." But when I told him, he panicked. Well, then he started over and he got on the fence, and he didn't believe me. And I knew the guy in the truck was old Joe Arrington. I knew he was going to be watching that fence line for us to cross. And he stood up, goosenecked, and when he did, he goes, "Vroom, vroom," and there came the truck. He goes, "Man, you weren't lying. That truck's sitting there. Get on over here now. Let's go," And consequently, a secondary front hit, and it was sleeting so bad the sleet was beating holes in our face like sandblasters. I had to wrap my poncho around me and fold it shut, hold a hand over my head and under my chin, and just peek out through the little gap because the sleet pellets were hitting me so hard it was piercing my face. And we walked the grasslands fighting that for the last 4.5 miles of open grassland to get to the highway. Then it was so cold when we got to the highway, we had to put our sleeping bags on under the bridge. We had to get up under this bridge and walk back and forth, just meeting each other head on. I think it looked like little black Sambos, ring of butter. We just wore the ground out under there for about 2.5 hours till Beaty showed up to get us. And when she pulled up and loaded us, hot thermos full of coffee, fired up a joint, old Casey could sing. And he started singing, "You're cheating hard, we'll tell on you." And man, I just kicked back then, sipping my coffee and smoking the reefer.
Well, how did she know when to be there for y'all?
I had her trained like a bird dog.
Like what was y'all's deal? Like every day?
1:30 in the morning was my golden hour. I had figured out the traffic was at the least then, less Border Patrol hassling people. I'd see Border Patrol pulling people over from 400 yards back, watching the freeway before, in the grassland, before I went, to the road and loaded. But, I was pretty pro at it. There was 5 or 6 seconds that they had to catch me, and that was it.
But the 1:30 in the morning, did she honk or anything when she come down there?
No, she just did a lights out, turn around below me, had a little litter barrel. When she got mobile again, she came back northbound before she cut her lights back on. I had her trained to pull right up on that bridge then, and we just run up from under that bridge and load.
So she would go, and if you weren't there, she'd just go back to the house.
Well, I never had that problem with her.
I mean, so the day you were going back with that guy, that was the day you were going to meet her.
Yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't like you went out early.
It went down to the minute.
So you told her, like, this is the night we're going to be here.
Tuesday at 1:30 a.m. to be here.
Yeah, one time she got pecked on the warhorse hunt. And she had to go back to town. She didn't know what to do then. And another buddy of mine had left his van there. Well, I hitchhiked in and got his van and went down there and did a lights out turn around and pulled up right on that bridge. And, they were asleep. I got under there kicking them. Get up, let's go, I'm here. Grabbed the backpacks and all the heads and threw them in the van. Took off, had an ice chest full of beer and fire up a joint, hand me a beer, and we're cruising northbound laughing our ass. I said, "Turn on the inside light. I got to see this buck again." I pulled up the old warhorse, started tripping on him. I mean, I lived a life that millionaires don't get to live. The thrills were worth anything I went through in pain and suffering and elements, the cold, the heat, the ticks, the ants, the chiggers. It was all worth it. You asked me a while ago, would I do it again? It was all worth it.
How many deer horns would y'all bring out at a time sometimes?
4, 5, 6.
Did you ever leave horns in there that you had to go back and get later?
No, George left a deer with 5 drop tines in a tree that's never been recovered. I don't know why he would do that so often, but he would kill bucks that were good bucks. He didn't want to carry them around with him. He didn't like taking a backpack. He'd hunt light 1 to 3 day hunts, and he'd leave a trail of dead heads hanging in trees, and sometimes he'd circle a different direction and not go back by there and get them. Like that one story in that last podcast.
So someone's got got a tree that's got 5 drop time horns in it somewhere.
I could probably find it the way he described it to me, and I didn't hang it there, but I could probably find it.
You don't think someone's found it by now?
Maybe. If anybody found it, it's probably a wetback, Some illegals walking through there. Hey, look at the venado,
Did you ever run across any of them when you were out there?
That one buck I found in that tree, when that, hunters came down there and missed that big deer I was after, and I was backing up before they even started into the area. But if something kind of startled me, I looked back behind me to keep them above my head, and like you do when you see a snake. And I looked back, and there's that buck George killed. He had told me about it.
But did you run across any illegals crossing the Kenedy while you were out there?
6 drug runners in backpacks, blue. That of all things, why were they wearing blue? They had blue, bright baby blue backpack. Probably just true blue, but they're about 15 to 25, 30 yards apart, and they were just beelining due north. I heard them saying something. I stuck me and my buddy down, and I said, just let them pass. I'd have liked to stop some of them and had a cup of coffee with them and shot the shit, but can't trust them. They might pull a gun and shoot you, But I think one of the funniest stories coming in part 2 is I found this pair of red panties on a windmill trap, and so I took them. I said, this is probably a ranch foreman he had a little fun with his girlfriend. He hung her panties up to dry and was going to get them later. I said, when he comes back, they're going to be gone. So I kept them for a year, and I told George about it. He said, now what you need to do is, when you go back this year, hang those red panties right back where you found them again. Probably wetbacks panties.
Did you see a lot of did the ranch, did they feed or something in there where
No.
you'd see them? So you didn't even, there wasn't even any trucks in them places a
No.
lot of times.
No. Any vehicles I heard were putting out mineral blocks on windmill trap, salt and whatever. Or they were, checking to make sure the cattle could get water at the various windmills. Nothing was happening. Sometimes those windmill traps get stopped up. One of my weirdest encounters was going to get water, and the wind was a runaway train. It was like 30 to 40 mile gust coming out of the north. And I needed to get a bunch of water because my buddy sprained his leg, and he was going to stay in the Devil's Den 3 days while I went to the Parita. So I had to get him all watered down before I left. Well, I go over to this windmill, and, the moss in the tank built up, plugged the overflow, and the water level came plumb to the top of the cement. I said, I can't even get clear water coming out of the pipe without getting it drained back down. So I unplugged it, and it started draining down, and it wasn't moving very fast. I said, I got to stop that windmill now. I was going to deal with it if I had to, but I said, I got to stop it now. So I got over there, and I got on that brake, and I started putting my whole body weight on that brake. When I did, I just snapped that wire off the brake. The windmill was spinning like hell. So I climbed the windmill, and I thought, I'm going to ride the sucker rod until it stops, and I'm just going to hang here on it, and I could see anybody drive up, keep my body weight on it to stop the windmill till that water drains off where I can get the clear water coming out of the pipe, pure water, and get the bottles filled. I get up there, I ride up and down on that sucker rod about 2 or 3 beats, and bang, I broke both bolts out of that joint up there. Well, then the windmill just went crazy. It's spinning like a drill. Wide open. I go, now what am I going to do? So, I had to hang on, catch myself on the railing and all the frame. I said, I got to get down and think this over. I got down, and I'm sitting there thinking a minute. I said, I've got to find a piece of wire. I've got to fix that and get water. It was 2 miles to the nearest other windmill, and I said, I got to get water here. So I looked around. I found a 4-foot piece of 9-gauge wire outside that windmill trap. So I climbed the windmill trap again, and I've made a staple out of it, sort of a U, and I run it through the 2 holes in the sucker rod, and I pulled it up. I got it lined right up. When that sucker rod joint would dip, it'd be a momentary stall. And I had it lined up right there, and about the 4th or 5th time it hit the dip and stalled, I shoved that staple through the bolt hose, twisted it off, and rode it up and down a moment, then grabbed myself on the frame. I got it running again. I go back down, and I sit there, and I'm waiting on the water to drain off where I can get to the pipe clean, get clear water. All of a sudden, I see a cow pop up, and I knew right quick it's a female, real trim, feminine look to her, and I go, that's a female. She looked at me, and she looked over her shoulder. Here came 6 males right behind her, bang, 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 chasing her, they were breeding her. She comes right at me. There's a game trail spitting it closer than you, Andy, and I'm looking at that game trail, and I go, oh, no, they're coming through that hole. And I'm back to a big live oak tree sitting on my butt. She comes under first, cuts her eyes at me, and then takes off. Next boy dog cuts his eyes at me and takes off. I could have spit on every one of them. I had no gun prepared to shoot. I was just sitting there with my gun against the tree over there. And had they jumped me, I don't know what would have happened. I'd have had to pull a pocket knife out and start stabbing them.
Shit.
All 7 of them coyotes went by so close I could spit on them. Well, that wired me for 220. I said, okay, now I'm ready. I got out there and I filled up all my water jugs. And I said, I've got to go up there and detach that, because if they find it, rigged like this, they're going to know some outlaw, and they'll find Richard in the camp while I'm gone to Parita. It's going to wreck the whole hunt. I got to disengage it again and make it look like the wind just broke it.
Right.
So I got over there and climbed back up the windmill and unwound that wire and pulled that out, pitched it off to the side where I'd have it if I ever needed it again. And got down out of there, and I got over there and told Richard, I said, man, I got a story to tell you before I leave and go to Parita. He looked at me, and he was the same guy that took me on my moose hunt in Alaska, and he goes, you crazy son of a bitch, turkey.
Can you imagine what they'd have did if they'd found that water? They'd been like, what the hell happened here?
Right. If they'd found that wired up, they'd have known somebody had to fix it to get water.
Were there a bunch of different places that, like you said, Devil's Den was where you would stay often? Did they ever know that was a place to look for people?
If I drill my map, they probably couldn't
Wouldn't be able to find it.
I'd have to take somebody there.
Did you name it Devil's Den, or did they?
Yeah.
Oh. Did you ever run into any other poachers in there?
No. At one time I found a nail guy, backstrap, both ears cut off. And I asked Mike about that when they caught me and had me down for a fishing trip visit and drove around to the ranch. I said, who would cut a nail guy's ears off? No, that didn't make sense to me. I said, did they put a bounty on him or something? But it was the weirdest thing I think I've ever seen in there. Was somebody backstrapped that big blue bull and just cut his ears off. Why'd they want his ears?
That's right. Did you shoot a lot of nail guy?
I didn't shoot a bunch of them. You know, when I'd met Riskin, Harry Riskin took me to shoot one every fall to put in my freezer. But I passed world record class nail guy. I would rattle them up. They'd come to the rattle.
That's a good eating animal.
Oh, yeah, it's excellent. But, past about November 1st, I didn't want one to eat. I would have killed them in September, October.
How much do they weigh?
950, 1050 is the biggest one I ever heard. A buddy of mine shot one, and I think the butcher weighed we cut it in 3 pieces. And he added up the weight of those 3 pieces, and I think he told me it was just shy of 1,000 pounds, just the 3 pieces. It was one of the biggest nail guy I've ever seen.
It's a big old animal.
What's the inside of Devil's Den like? How much room is there?
It's a 35-foot ravine. It's 40 yards long. It's got thick shinry all over the outside of it. It looks like there's no void in the middle, but it's got a trench in the middle, like a latrine. And you can come in from either end of those necks. But I would access it straight up and over the dune. Because when you're going up a soft sand hill like that, your tracks just cover themselves.
Right, they disintegrate.
Well, sand just covers. You don't leave a mark. You're on your toes. You're on the ball of your foot. You're going up that steep grade, 50-degree incline. Sand's just falling right back in your track. I didn't like using the entrances down on the end.
And that's where you would stay at night?
A lot of times.
And your buddy stayed there for 3 days?
Yeah.
Because what did he do to his leg?
Well, he actually strained it jumping the fence. And when he did, there was so much traffic getting kicked out westbound. I said, we're just going to stay over here till this traffic lets up. It was a week before Christmas holiday. Everybody's going south. That highway was a train. And so I said, I wouldn't lay there like he said, man, my legs hurt. He goes, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make the hunt. And I said, well, look, if you ain't feeling better in a couple of hours when this traffic clears, I'm going to hitchhike in and get a ride for us out of here if you're injured. He started saying, well, it's starting to feel a little better. It looks like I'll be okay. I said, I wouldn't lay down in that grass. He said, why not? And I said, man, the chiggers are real bad right here at the highway with all that carbon monoxide coming off all the vehicles. They gather in that high grass. They're bad. They're worse there than anywhere in the ranch. I didn't have 7 dust with us. Had it in the camp 14 miles deep. I said, we can't even 7 dust down until we get there in 2 days. I said, you don't need sugar bites all over you, Richard, and seed ticks. And he said, I can't help it. I got to lay here. So he laid there, and the chiggers just eat him alive. In fact, the name of that hunt is called This Guy Paid His Dues. Yeah. George hated me bringing these greenhorns down there that didn't work and earn the right to get the hunt that good of a place. And he said, they ain't paid their dues. Well, when I came out there with a picture of that guy's back,
oh, shit.
1,500 seed tick chigger bites all over his back and arms, and his whole body was covered like that. And he laughed, and he goes, go, 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 go. He said, now, this guy paid his dues.
Yes, he did.
I think like nail polish is how you get rid of chiggers, isn't it? Or hairspray?
Now, once those seed ticks dig in, they're there till they die and rot out. You're miserable with them.
They're terrible.
Yeah, they're bad.
I've had them a handful of times, like turkey hunting and stuff. One time I was sneaking up on a turkey, and I had to, like, army crawl to get to it because it was kind of a clearing, but it was taller grass. I didn't even think anything of it, and I was crawling to it. Fucking next day, like, I had, like, one little scratch in here, and next day here, and then, like, by that night, like, my whole chest was just chigger bites.
Well, I use 7 dust, 10%, because 5% would keep the seed ticks and chiggers off of you, but the big ticks would still get on you.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to 10% 7 dust, that big tick might get on you in your sleep, but when you'd wake up, pull him off of you, he'd be dead.
Really?
Yeah, it's 10% is the only way to go. I put it down inside my pants. I didn't wear it outside where it dust off. I'd shake a handful loose of my leg, shake my leg, get it all scattered out in there under me. When I took the game wardens and showed them the Parita camp when we went on that fishing trip, they got eat up. And I told them at the truck, I said, y'all better put some of this on, boys. It's fixing to get here. And they didn't listen to me. And they got over and sat in camp and listened to me tell a few stories. They said, we got to make a move. Something's getting on me. I said, yeah, I told you them chiggers and sea ticks fixing to get on your ass. And they did.
Now, inside the Devil's Den, what was it? Just bare dirt floors, or
I had a lean-to built in there, you know, just a tarp, 8x10 tarp, canted, and I'd you could fit 2 hunters under that in a sleeping bag, and it would help cover you being sighted down through all that live oak in the bottom. That whole thing was crested with live oak, and you know the trees were like that all through that ravine. And so if you walked by down at the end, you weren't likely to look up and see a thing. That brown tarp.
So there wasn't. You were really hid there, and you had a permanent camp there.
It was a great place to have a camp. I was downwind in case I wanted to smoke some jerky. I was downwind of the brush. Any roads, I could light a fire there when the wind was out of the north and smoke jerky and cook meat, and the scent would blow out across the prairie. No one would pick up the smoke. And down in that ravine, it'd break up the time it got 35 feet up and cleared, and the wind would just pick it off at the top.
Did your buddy see anybody those 3 days that he just had to hang out there?
He sat there and wore out my headset, listening to the radio, watching for the weather to change and stuff, worrying about me, wondering where the hell I was, what I was doing.
Could he have, let's say something happened to you on the Parita, could he have found his own way out?
Oh, yeah. He'd have found a road and turned himself in.
Oh, that's what he would have had to have done.
Yeah, he wouldn't have tried to find his way to the highway. He wasn't going anywhere till I showed up. The time of the hunt was set for 7 days. We had to move back west on day 5, day 6. So, you know, we had to cover a 2 days trip to get back to the highway.
Did you have a place that on your way back in staging that you camped out every time at?
I had another little spot I left some mosquito hammock nets and hammocks, and you know, those are nice because you could stretch a hammock and take a nap in it or sleep there all night in that hammock with a mosquito net around it. I went high-tech on a lot of equipment. And I had a stash of canned food there. One of the things happened with a buddy of mine, we'd come back up on this big deer at the end of the day, and he was real tired and worn out, and he said, I don't want even care to shoot him. I said, you got to be kidding me. That's a good buck. He had the double drop beams. He was the same genetics as the one coming on the cover of part 2 that we'd killed 6 or 7 years earlier. I said, that's the genealogy, the genetics of that double drop buck Dennis killed. I said, you need to go shoot that deer. And he goes, I don't even want to shoot him. I'm going to go to that camp. He
tired.
Yeah, he wore out. He's 50,
fucking over it.
He's 50 years old, 51 or 53, I can't remember. Well, I said, I'm going to go shoot the deer then. I said, if you want to go to camp, he said, where'd I go? I said, just follow this rim of sand dunes around where that live oak starts again, right there. Don't go anywhere. You stay right there. Well, he got turned around in the first 100 yards, and he saw another clump of sand dunes, and he went after that. I went after the buck, and if I'd have killed him, he'd have been in trouble because it was about to get dark. But I saw the buck at 300 yards. I go, I'll go ahead and take the shot now. I'm going to put him down before he gets in the brush. He was outside the brush, doe and a spike with him. The spike was staying away but hassling him, and he kept looking back at that spike. He had no idea I was there. And the spike finally aggressed towards the doe a little bit, and when he did, that buck had had enough. I was on his hip, squeezing off to make a perfect shot in that heavy wind. And when I shot, he turned and bowed up at that little spike, and I missed him, shot right where his shoulder had been. Yeah. I was pissed, but I knew I had to get on, and they ran and got in the brush. And I said, I got to get on to Roy before he gets lost. Sure enough, he got lost. I come down into the camp. I couldn't find him, and I went, I should have never let him get away from me. And I ran up to the top of that dune, and I started looking into the sun with my hand over my eyes like this, keep the sun on my face. And I went all the way up towards the northwest, and I went, oh, my God, there he is. He's 2 miles from me, walking up this sand dune, heading the wrong way. I said, I got to get the canned foods and get. I ran down there and dug up the stash, loaded my pack down with the canned foods, and I ran all the way to him. And, I mean, I was carrying my pack fully loaded, and I got within about 200 yards of him. He's staying put. He sat down on that sand dune. And I just started walking a little to walk it off some, and he gets up. I go, no. And, I mean, the wind's blowing like hell towards him, so I just cupped my hands around my mouth, and I said, Thornton, stop. And he heard me from 200 yards off. So he sat back down, and I walked up to him. I was mad at him. I just slapped him on the arm and walked right by him, and I said, Tag, you're it. He goes, no, don't leave me again. I'm already scared. I've learned my lesson. I'm not going anywhere again without you, Next morning, I woke up, and I'm making coffee and oatmeal, and he goes, sure is good to see you this morning, Bubba. I said, that's more like it. Yeah, he'd been getting on my nerves, trying to act bossy. That shut his shit up.
Yeah, he's fucked if you'd have left.
He said, I was just going to turn myself in here at this windmill the next day. He was right where we'd seen them drug runners hauling them, dope on the way in. And, he was fearing that kind of stuff. And he said, I was just going to go to that windmill and wait till the truck came and turn myself in.
It's got to be so hard. Like, I can imagine doing this by yourself, but now you're taking somebody who doesn't necessarily, know the lay of the land or know, like, what to expect. Like, it ratchets up the difficulty to pull this off.
When the cops got there, the first one, we at the Devil's Den. We're up on the lip looking out over the brush, and he looked around and he goes, you were right. They can't catch you. He took total confidence then. And, he still knew we had to keep our head about it. And the funniest thing happened after he shot his first buck. It was 157-inch 10-point, 20 inches inside. And it wasn't long, and here comes choppers. Well, that shook him. Mm-hmm. And what it was it wasn't the ranch. Tom East was dead. It was Operation Desert Storm. It was military helicopters, but we got down in heavy scenery and held, and I kept saying, don't look up, and they went right over us 5 in a row, and they were heading probably to Pensacola Point to gas up and head on over to the Middle East. Mm-hmm. But that shook him a little bit hearing helicopters. He goes, oh, shit, you were right about them helicopters. I said, wait a minute, we don't know what it is yet. Let's listen. And then we saw them. I picked up and saw them. But I said, you still need to stay down. They were pretty close.
Could you tell in the people that you took, like, could you tell, like, kind of when they got comfortable with things?
Oh, yeah.
How long would it be? Like, would it be, 6 hours? Would it be a day in? Would it be not until after they shot their first animal?
One rattle.
One rattle.
I hit the horns and the bucks start running in, and they go, fuck it, this ain't nowhere else to be.
Right.
Then they lose all fear then. They realized what we were there for was real. It was going to happen, just like I said. Mm-hmm. Went the first cop, he goes, man, I need to catch a nap before we get started at the crack of day, the first daylight, He goes, I need to take a little nap. I said, well, wait till I rattle one time, and then you tell me if you want to take a nap or not. I beat the bone, and here came 3 bucks running in and a coyote. He goes, fuck it, let's hunt.
What's the most unusual thing you saw while you were in there?
Well, I can tell you the most unusual thing I've heard of recently. I never saw anything real bizarre, but a buddy of mine down there he met and got to know a seismograph captain, crew manager. They just found a plane crash in there from the 50s, and had they not cut a path right into it, they'd have never found it.
Isn't that crazy?
With the remains still in the cockpit.
Ooh.
They knew that probably went down there, and they'd searched for it there.
Probably out of Kingsville, a naval plane?
I don't know. This was some rich guys flying the coastline, and they went down in under the canopy of the live oak and just buried it there, and it was never found until recently. That's the strangest thing I've heard of.
Was you close to where it was at?
Oh, it was in some of my territory. Oh, yes. I could have walked up on it. It would have been a possibility.
What would you have done?
I'd have probably reported it.
Would you have?
Yeah. I'd have probably reported that.
Just anonymously? Like,
no,
hey.
I'd have went to him and I said, I'll tell you what, grant me immunity and I'll take you to the crash.
Right. Would you take, like, whiskey and weed back there, or did you want to stay sober?
Yeah, I'd take a bottle of whiskey and at evening time, get up on the lip of the Devil's Den, have a couple of stiff drinks before supper. Just enjoy the beauty of that lay of the land. It was unbelievable. It's a land of enchantment.
Mm-hmm. Did you eat good in there?
Like a king. I had one of these little Optimus stoves that tall that would deep fry an elephant, white gas. And I'd take a gallon of white gas in a steel can and, pour it into a quart oil container jar, oil cans. And, what you do with that, pour about a half a cup of gas on top of it and preheats the carburetor and pressurizes the tank. And then you light it. I mean, it'll melt lead. I could deep fry an elephant with it.
How hard was it to carry that pack at first? You said it's 100 pounds.
I've been fit my whole life. I just had to get to another level. 3 days, you got your legs. I don't care if it's 100, 140, 150 pounds. In 3 days, you got your legs under you. You don't even feel it anymore. It'll get weary near the end of a long hunt.
Yeah.
But it actually helped you in heavy brush. You'd be going through that heavy brush and your core is really working. You just lean forward a little bit and let that backpack help you. The weight of it just bulldoze through there. I know how elephants get in that heavy brush and just push through. They just put their weight in their favor.
With the guys that you take, did they ever have problems carrying their pack at first?
Yeah, this buddy of mine, Big L, he's dead now. He grabbed my pack, get me to help pull him through that brush. And I felt the load increase, and he needs help. So I just leaned on over a little bit more, drug him about 40 yards, and then I just tripped up and went down. He went down on top of me, and we landed facing each other. I looked at him, and I said, "Welcome to the Kenedy Ranch."
What did you ever have any instances where like you like sprained an ankle or anything like that, or did you?
Yeah, I was going to save this one. I can tell it, but I was coming out on the end of that 27-day hunt. I'm loaded for bear, man. I mean, I've got like 145 to 50 pounds on my back. I got 6 bucks. I got 6 capes. I got countless shed horns, maybe 2 dozen. I've got a set of locked skulls, and it's pouring down rain, cats and dogs, and I'm about 6 miles deep, and I'm heading west, and I'm looking for this north-south fence line to come up any minute. And I said, I know it's got to be here any minute, and so all of a sudden I could see it. So I focused on it, and I went, there it is. At that moment, I hung my tip of my boot on a stub about 15, 18 inches long. And every now and then the tip of that toe of that boot, the steel would even get caved in on me, and I'd pull my boot and straighten it out. Well, it stuck in the tip of that toe of that boot, that combat boot. And when it did, it hung my leg out behind me. And when it hung my leg out behind me, I thought I'd made enough effort to free myself, but I didn't quite put enough kick on it to get it to let go, and it stayed in place, and it had me stuck. I finally kicked hard and lost it, got rid of it, and then I had to throw my right leg out in front of me and set it down stiff to catch my balance. And when I did, in a split second, I was standing on my head. Forward somersault. Bang! I could have broke my neck. Mm-hmm. And I had all that shit on that pack, them racks all sticking up and everything. It's probably what saved me from breaking my neck. And I couldn't move. I'm standing on my head, and rain's pouring in my nose, filling up my sinus cavity, and I'm drowning, choking. I had to turn my head sideways, and I'm kicking and swinging my legs as hard as I could side to side to try to roll over. I could not do it. It was as if I was pinned by a 600-pound sumo wrestler. And I mean, I'm choking. And I said, all right, just get your shit together. Just calm down a minute. Turned my head sideways and letting the rain run off my head. And I said, I can't reach my pull string on my shoulder strap. Maybe I can get my waistband. So I said, jack your arms a little different. You've tried pulling out, you can't. Jack your elbows to the middle. And I started jacking my elbows to the middle, and it gave me a little bit of slack, and then I was able to fold one arm over and catch my waistband. Busted that waistband loose. That gave me a little relief. And then I reached up, pulled the string on a shoulder harness, freed my arm, and got out of it. I was there 3 minutes. I almost
on your head.
Yeah, I almost drowned upside down. Glued to that pack, strapped in. I couldn't get free.
That'd be hell. Somebody find you about 30 years later, and they'd be like, "I wonder what happened to this guy."
They would have found me quicker than that. But if I'd have broke my neck, I'd been there dead, and they'd have found me. I was less than 40 yards off the fence, so it scared the shit out of me. I thought, man, I could have broke my neck. I could have been paralyzed and laid there and suffered for days before I died, or anybody might have found me. And I said, I could have died back there. So I couldn't shake that fear of death. I crossed that fence, and I got going, and I kept saying, wow, I almost died back there. And I heard the Spirit of God say, yeah, one of these days you're going to die, just like all them animals you've been killing. He said, your body is just a shell that you live in while you're here. I thought about all I'd done all of them years, 22 years, all the hundreds and thousands of miles I'd walked, and the loads I'd carried, and the deer I'd killed. And a big smile came across my face, and I said, well, all I can tell you is, Lord, it's been one hell of a shell.
You know, when you talk about that and getting stuck back there and stuff, today, no one could do what you did today.
No.
The night vision.
No, it's over.
Drones.
Game cameras, too, I would think.
It's all over, boys. Hang it up. I have. If I can quit, they can quit.
The people poaching now, I think more of them, the night vision, you know, game wardens used to watch for spotlights everywhere. Well, nobody uses a spotlight anymore. They've all got night vision.
Yeah.
So that's changed that game. And I don't know if I don't think poaching's near as bad as it used to be.
No. No, everybody's...
The laws and have made it so much. And I'm sure there's some areas that still get night hunters and stuff.
Opportunist.
Could you imagine with today's night vision the hunting you could have done?
Well, it wasn't even necessary. I didn't like hunting at night. I wanted to see the drama play out. I wanted to see them big, beautiful deer leaping in 20-yard bounds and, you know, charging in wide open, right to you. I mean, it was just heroin.
Do you think you could rattle at night and you would ring them in?
That's better than daylight.
At nighttime you
They'll
rattle?
break their neck running into a fence coming at you at night. Now, me and George had one just about do that. I kept telling him to turn on the light, and he wouldn't turn it on. And when he lit it up, we were 15 yards from a fence, didn't even know it. And the buck was 5 yards from the other side of it, running wide open at us. And he saw the fence then and flared. But if he hadn't, he was fixing to collide with that fence. And it was hog wire.
So you hunted at nighttime also, didn't
We did some of that. I didn't do it regular. But when we hit the King Ranch refuge, we rattled.
But you rattled at night.
In the fog. And that's why the deer couldn't see that fence. It was real foggy. And, it's harder to judge them in the fog. Wet, their horns just glare. You can't even count the points. It's just a big cluster up there in the glow.
Now, so how would you do it at night? Would you
We
have a
got
spotlight?
discouraged trying to. Well, we turned the light on when they got close and light them up. See what we had.
But
around.
you would just have to hear them.
You hear them coming in. They're wide open. I ain't kidding you. It's a thrill. But
Wow.
we just threw in the towel and got some sleep. We said we're gonna be able to judge them. It got so difficult to judge them. We hung it up about 3 in the morning and we waited till daylight. And we could see in the fog to judge them. And we continued the hunt. I forgot to tell that first part of that story. George shot this buck, but what happened? They fought right on top of us. I got scared. George been there, done that many a time, but that was the first fight I saw point blank. The corner of that room's the closest I was to him, right over there in the corner. And when they reared, they paced off. They got in this little standoff. And they hopped right to each other, right on us, and then they bowed up and put their chin deep in their neck. And the racks came right out here in front of them, and they took these little short, sharp, choppy steps and squared off in about a half circle they made, and then they just, on cue, like the bell rang for round 1, reared up in the air and just back and forth. And I mean, they were so close. I got around behind this tree. I didn't want to get hurt. And George was looking at me, going, just laughing at me. Well, they come apart, the tall pencil horn 9-point, kicked that big old wide 24-inch spread 12-point George shot. But when they broke apart, he goes, ah, and he come off and he leaped out there about 20, 30 yards. George went, when he stopped him whistling, he looked back. George broke his neck. He broke his boat laughing, and he goes, just wasn't his day, was it? But that was fun times. Hunting with George was double the fun.
So at nighttime, how close were you to the actual King Ranch headquarters when you hunted that pasture?
We were less than half a mile from it.
Wow.
On that chase, leaving out the second night. We crossed right behind it to go to town. We went right through the middle of that scenic tour, that loop road, that 12-mile road. And they were hot on our ass, but, I mean, they stayed up all night that night looking for us after finding them 2 carcasses out there belly up with their heads cut off.
What? How far are you good with a bow? What was your range on a bow?
Oh, I made a 70-yard shot on a doe one time for camp meet. That was my longest shot.
70 yards.
Yeah,
is
midair. I'd missed 2 just before that, trying to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them did the same thing. They stood and watched the arrow come about halfway to them, turned, ducked deep, and wheeled, leap. Arrow went right where they had stood. And I went, man, these long shots, I've got to allow for all that. Likely they're going to keep doing it, like 2 in a row. So the third doe I walked upon, I said, I'm going to pick that imaginary spot up and over about 8, 9 feet, and that's where I'm going to shoot. And that doe watched that arrow come halfway to her, and she dug down deep to spring and sprung and wheeled and leaped right up into the air right behind the crease. You'd have had to seen it to believe it. I saw it, and I didn't believe it. I said, what a fucking shot. I said, nobody would believe that if I had it on film.
Mm-hmm.
It was a full 70 steps.
And with a longbow?
Yeah. No, I probably never made. I killed a dog one time with a longbow at 80 yards. This dog got rogue in the game ranch where I was guiding, and Tom told me, he said, take that Pyrenees out if you see it. And I shot it at 80 yards on my second shot. First shot was just shy of it, so I just raised up a little higher and squared off, get a straighter line. 80-yard shot.
Hmm.
I had the record there.
And anything over that, you would use your rifle with your.
Yeah. See, that's what hurt me on my moose hunt. I had a bull, monster bull, 125 yards from me. I had practiced at ranges with the longbow through the summer, preparing for that hunt. And I practiced 125 yard shooting on an elk target, 3D target. I was sticking it pretty regular. I didn't have the balls to take a shot at that bull at 125 yards. I didn't want to butcher him up. He was so magnificent, I thought, no, he's crossing here probably every day, every other day. I'm going to go get the rifle and come stake him out. I found my bull I want to kill now. And I let him slide. I actually thought he was going to get in the timber and keep that direction. He did, and he turned and went down that feeder creek. I went .45 angle. I tried to get him. I went after him in 2 foot of snow under the timber, and I got about 250, 300 yards out there, and I saw a little bit of a trail. I laid up on it, and he never came. I went backtracked him. They turned, the 2 cows that were with him, he's following, they turned and went right down that trail along that feeder creek. So I thought in 2, 3 days he's going to be passing through here again. I'm going to kill him. And I went and camped out there for 3 nights and days and didn't see him, and I gave it up. I said, he's just following those cows wherever they go. Yeah, but, well, he was unreal.
I lost my train of thought for a minute. Do you, shit, I can't remember. Oh, you said something earlier about shooting a javelina.
Oh, yeah.
I've never heard anybody else even eating a javelina.
They're delicious. An old woman down there made me pan sausage. We barbecued them all the time. Javelina's good eating. But when you kill him, you need to go in there on the back and the hip area and cut off that big old musk gland that makes him stink so bad. Get rid of that just like you would the smelly hocks on a rutting buck. Get rid of anything that's going to access the meat that's nasty. They're delicious.
What else do you eat inside the ranch that most of us wouldn't think about eating?
Well, you know, I can't offhand just think of something crazy.
I've never heard of nobody eating wild hog balls. Ever. Nobody ever. I've never heard of that.
You don't know what living is.
I've never heard of that. I'm not saying they wouldn't be good. I'm just telling you I've never heard of no one doing that. So you would shoot a hog just for the balls?
I wanted to get a tranquilizer dart for my longbow and just start sticking them and cutting their nuts off to fry and let them live. And George said, I'll give you one better than that. He said, what you need to do is take your cell phone and tranquilizer dart one of them when you get in there, the first one you see, put your cell phone around his neck on a collar and turn him loose. He said the game wardens will be following your phone around, and you'll be at the other end of the ranch hunting. George was a character now. Oh, it's a shame he's gone.
Yeah, it is.
Well, so when's the second book going to be out for people that are going to know? So 3 to 6 months?
I hope summer don't go by without me having it out in August, September.
August, September.
That's what I'm shooting for.
Are you going to the Trophy Hunter show again to sell it?
Until they let me start selling my books there, they're out.
I wouldn't go to them anyways. I wouldn't either.
You can do way more online.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's a good platform for meet and greet and connections to form to help further my book sales. You know, that's all it's about. I'm not going there to get taxidermy.
I can't believe they won't let you sell a book there, but that don't shock me with that organization.
That's probably because of, you know, Lee BASS and some other biggies in their corporation and corporate form, you know, came from above.
Well, tell everybody your website.
www.princeofpoachers.com. Right now, it's down. I'm renovating a little exterior building into an office beside my house. I let my manager go when I sold out in December. You can call me at 817-648-8098. You can Gmail me at 56charlesbeatty.gmail.com.
Have you thought about doing any speaking engagements? People,
not yet.
Would you do that?
Sure.
That's something you ought to think about. I could see where a group would like to have you come and tell your stories.
Yeah, I can't waste time right now till I get part 2 finished.
Okay, so part 2 by August, hopefully.
Yeah.
September.
What are you in the editing stage? Or
No,
what are
I'm
you?
still writing.
You're
Part
still
2 is
writing
3 times the material as part 1.
Right.
And the minute I get it out and sold, I will immediately combine the 2 into one big book.
No, just write a part 3. Don't combine. You got enough stories. You do a part 3. You got to keep them stories going.
Yeah, I can write a book about the cancer. I can write a book about a number of things. There's so much more from way back when.
The scalpel slicing your nut in half. That's a story all on its own.
I got to tell one thing. You know, I didn't know why I didn't remember this sooner, but in 74 and 75, I went to work for a taxidermy, a big one called Assorted Tracks in Garland. And I met a man there who was a Korean War veteran named Reese Daniels. And Reese, I got him hooked on duck hunting. I was mad at the ducks back then before I fell in love with deer hunting. And I mean, I got him addicted to duck hunting. And we went to see Doug Kershaw one New Year's Eve night. And, you know, my wife at the time, my first wife, got drunk. I threw her over my shoulder and carried her out of there with her pants wet. Her pants got so drunk. So when me and Reese had plans to go duck hunting the next morning, he beat on my door and got me out of bed. And I said, man, I'm too hungover. No, I'm not going. He goes, well, I'm going. He was that hooked on duck hunting. And we hunted Lake Dallas at Pilot Point out off 380, and just to the east of Denton. And so
Is that where Lake Ray Roberts is now?
No, that's Lake Dallas.
I never even heard of Lake Dallas.
Okay. Well, Gar's a little elm. Okay. So we were up there at Pilot Point, and there was a place we could park and by a mud hole, and then walk down that rocky, sandy, you know, muddy slope get to the lake, the backwater of the lake on that east side of the lake. And I'd taken him there several times, and he fell in love with the place. And he had his own digs, he had his own calls, and he really gotten into it. And, you know, he gets set up real early, and these drunks come in on top of him. And I'm in there cutting up and raising hell, and he's madder than hell. He goes, man, that's just great. I'm all in here all ready to hunt. They're going to come in here and set up right on top of me. Sure enough, they set up upwind from him, and when the ducks would come in towards his digs, they'd skyball him and shoot him up, flare him before he could get a shot. Well, it didn't take long to piss Reese off. He was a rough dude. So he got mad. He packed up all his dicks in his duffel bag and walked back up to his car and had this little Valiant. He's afraid of getting it stuck in a mud hole like that game warden did on that other deal. So he warmed his motor up, got turned around, pulled just past. He said it was a blue SS Chevy Chevelle. He got out, took his old Mossberg 3-inch chamber Magnum 4s. First thing he wanted to do was disable the vehicle. Nobody had cell phones then in 74, 75. So he was afraid of them going to a phone and calling his vehicle in because they'd been by it and seen possibly what he had. Maybe he had his license plate. Well, so he fired right down through the hood, straight in the carburetor, first shot.
Jesus.
Steps back to the driver's side door, right through the driver's side window, straight into the instrument panel. Turned toward the rear of the vehicle. He said they had it all tacked out, jacked up in the back, had carpet on the back dash, 2 box speakers. Blew one of them box speakers right out the back windshield. Jesus. Jumped in his car and took off. Well, he comes to my house, and he's in hysteria. And I said, what in the hell's wrong with you? And he goes, man, I've got to tell you what happened, but I need a minute to cool off. He said, I'm laughing my ass off. I can't quit laughing. He sat on my couch. He rolled off it in the floor. And he said, these guys come in on top of me drunk. They pissed me off. He said, I said, what'd you do? He said, I shot their car. I said, you got to be kidding me. He goes, no, I blew the hell out of it. And he told me how he fired his 3 shots. I said, damn, Reese, that really pisses me off. Because I know I ruined your duck hole. I ruined your honey hole. We'll find another place to hunt. I said, that ain't why I'm mad. I said, I'd have known we were going to have that much fun getting to shoot up a car. There ain't no way I'd have missed out on that. I'd have drug it out and went. But, man, he said, ever since I heard you and your buddy shooting that car, I wanted to do it.
There's somebody that's listening to this that knows somebody that got their car shot up.
You know, that's
Dallas.
50 years ago, 45, 50 years ago. If they're still alive, they may finally time. It was a blue SS Chevy Chevelle, shag carpet in the back there. In 3 shots, he totaled that vehicle. But he told me a story about being over in Korea, and his troops got bored. He was a sergeant over a little platoon, and they were walking along one day, and there was this muskox, water buffalo, something pulling a plow. The old farmer was guiding him. He waved him off. And he goes, no, that old, Korean was waving his arms. He knew what he was going to do. Some of them other soldiers had probably done him that way before, and they'd heard of it. He pulled out a grenade, pulled the pin. They're going, get back, old man. And it was about 35 yards. He threw that grenade out there under that buffalo. Just quartered him in one grenade. All of his soldiers were dying laughing and cheering. But, that's war. War is hell.
Yes, it is.
They did that just for entertainment. But he had a grenade go off on him over there in Broccoli. I thought I remembered a different story about him that another guy told me. Reese wouldn't talk about his time over there much, but he did tell me about blowing up that buffalo with a grenade. But his widow, Sandy, just told me recently, his name was Reese Daniels, he went on to become chief, captain, and sergeant at police stations, Rockwall, Paris, Rusk, over Jacksonville area somewhere. He went on to be a great member of society, but and quit taxidermy. I worked with him at the taxidermy shops, how I met him. But man, everybody loved Reese. He was a character now.
And he's no longer with us.
No, he just passed away. Like Jim. See, about a year ago, I got back in touch with him on Facebook, and we had a lot of time on the phone catching up on lost time. I sent him a book. He read it, and he's, man, Chuck, I've written 2 books too. Well, see, I've got the names of those now. His widow just gave me the names of the 2 books he's written. I hadn't had time to get them and read them. But I didn't know he'd become an author, too. It was crazy how, we were apart 40 years, and then I just got to reunite with him and visit with him before he passed away. He got exposed to Agent Orange in Korea.
That's bad
tough
stuff.
And that's what gave him the cancer that killed him.
That's too bad.
Yeah, that's real tough.
But he got
stuff.
to live to be 70.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a bad deal.
Yeah.
Well, Charles, we appreciate you being on here again, and we want to have you on here as soon as this second book is out. You're coming here, and we're going to sit down and talk about it.
Well,
And your friend's got a book coming out, so we're
Yeah.
going to have to get you 2 on together.
That's right.
Yes.
Collaborate.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we'll do that sometime in the next 6 weeks.
It's going to take 3 or 4 podcasts to cover part 2.
Okay, well, we look forward to having you on here. We appreciate you being on here, bud.
Yeah, same
All right,
here.
thank you so
Thanks
much.
for having me.
You bet.
Charles Beaty, folks, the one and only Prince of Poacher.
All right, go check out all of our sponsors. Check out Stanfield Hunting Outfitters, Bangtail Whiskey, Goose Creek Retrievers, Gundog Outdoors, Pacific Custom Calls, Blind Grass, Dive Bomb Ministry, Boss Shot Shell, Dirty Duck Coffee, Lucky Duck, and the Looking Glass Duck Club.